Lana is a sleep and insomnia expert. For 30 years, she coped with daily exhaustion, where she would lie awake most nights frustrated that she couldn't get to sleep. Through dedicated research, she finally found a specific process of behavior changes that completely transformed her life. Now she is passionate about sharing how chronic tiredness doesn't have to be in your daily struggle and how you can make the feeling rested so you can improve your performance and well-being. As well, we were chatting a little bit of how sleep is so important for everyone in this webinar today. And this could be a translator, an interpreter. If you're a client, if you're an administrator, we all need to have this as a base for our health. So welcome, Lana. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Just give me a second to rearrange my screen here so I can, okay, so I do have the chat open, you guys. I like to interact. I'm going to be asking you questions, so please, reply in the chat. Feel free to make comments on anything that I'm talking about, and I'll be happy to answer your questions at the end. This is my presentation on unleashing your potential. You do not have to live with chronic tiredness as I did for 30 years. So let's start with, have you ever done this? Maybe you're feeling this way right now because it's mid or late afternoon where you are, and you've struggled to keep your eyes open during a boring, monotonous talk like I'm not going to give you, right? Have you ever done that? No, not me, never. Yeah. Well, I did this in a very, very important meeting. When I was 21 years old, I was president of my student association, and I was invited to be part of a delegation of presidents from across the province to talk to the premier. Now, if you're from the States, that's like the governor. It's like the head of your state is who I was meeting with. And the meeting was dragging on middle of the afternoon, kind of like around this time. I was trying to stay engaged, but I couldn't because I was nodding off. I was falling asleep in a meeting with the premier. Now you can imagine how embarrassing that is. I mean, it's probably very embarrassing for you to even remember those times that you've done it yourself. But here's the thing. Falling asleep at this time of day is not your fault, because 100% of people have reduced alertness and energy in the afternoon. We have a circadian rhythm, and our energy levels rise and fall throughout the day. And during the mid-afternoon to late afternoon, everybody hits their lowest point. And what do? We reach for a cup of coffee, or maybe we have a nap. But both of those things can affect your sleep at night. Caffeine can take up to 12 hours to metabolize. So if you're thinking you got 6 hours to go, it could be as many as 12, and it can still affect your sleep. If you take a nap, you run the potential of reducing adenosine, which is the sleep neurotransmitter that builds up in the brain that makes you want to sleep and sleep through the night. So making sure you have something to do in the afternoon that isn't coffee or a nap, one of the things you can do is get physically active. Moving around for about 15 minutes can boost your energy by as much as a cup of caffeine without affecting your sleep at night. And all you have to do is get through those about 2 hours. If you can get yourself through those 2 hours, then your energy level starts to rise again and you'll feel great. So if you can find something to do in that mid-afternoon time frame, drinking water is also good. Hydration is important. Moving around, those are some alternatives to drinking caffeine or having a nap. Now, the worst thing about falling asleep in a meeting, right, is people notice. I mean, you can't not notice somebody's head doing the bob, right, when you're in a room like that. And when that happens, your eyes pop open, you're like deer in the headlights, and you're thinking, oh my God, I hope nobody saw that. And sure enough, somebody is always staring at you. When I was in that meeting, I'm sure they thought, oh, she's a 21-year-old kid. She was probably out drinking the night before. But the truth was, I had been having trouble sleeping for almost a decade by then. I was tired all the time, and I would tell people constantly, I'm tired, I'm tired. And you know what? Nobody cared because of this. Being an adult is about being tired, telling people how tired you are, and listening to other people how tired you are. So pop in the chat, have you thought, said, or heard someone else say in the last week, I'm tired? Type yes if you've thought or said or done that, right? Yes, 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 all these yeses. Everybody is tired. Our society today, 100%, our society today is like 24/7. We're on all the time. Our email comes to our phone and we're like, I have to answer. That notification comes up and you're like, what's going on? I need to know what's happening. We have this belief that sleeping less makes us more productive. The opposite is actually the truth. I'm not going to get into that today, but it's actually the opposite. The whole world runs on coffee. We have glorified being tired. We have celebrities telling us they only need 5 hours of sleep, and look at how successful they are. And it's created a massive shortage of sleep. And it's so normalized that we don't even know this is a problem. We assume this is just the way it's supposed to be. And it's so bad that 60% of medical professionals don't even talk to their patients about sleep. They don't even address sleep as a potential issue for their health, mental health, or other challenges that they're facing. And yet, experts believe 1 in 5 people have a chronic sleep disorder that affects their day-to-day life. These are the most common, but they have diagnosed over 80 different sleep disorders. And some of these are kind of hidden, like sleep apnea. A lot of people who have sleep apnea don't even know that they have a problem. It takes a loved one telling them that they stop breathing at night for them to even know they need to get tested. I had restless leg syndrome when I was a child, and that's what caused my trouble sleeping and led to me developing insomnia. But this normalization of being tired means we don't ask for help. Now, as the insomnia expert, I'm going to talk about that specifically because it is the most misunderstood and underdiagnosed of all the sleep disorders. In fact, I was never formally diagnosed, and I've seen a sleep specialist, I've been sleep tested, and I spent a decade on medication where I went to my doctor every year to get a refill. And in that decade, never once talked about my sleep other than I couldn't sleep. And here's your prescription. So insomnia is simply taking an hour or more to go to sleep or go back to sleep after waking up in the night. That's it, an hour. Now you can have trouble going to sleep or staying asleep or both at the same time, depending on what's happening in your life. Typically stress. Stress is the #1 reason people can't sleep. And if you have, it comes and goes, it doesn't mean you have a problem with insomnia, it just means you're going through something. But if it's happening 3 or more times per week, it's been going on for more than a few months, that's when it's chronic. And when you start to perceive a detrimental consequence, so if you feel stressed, anxious, frustrated, irritated, unproductive, unmotivated, because you had a bad night's sleep, that's where it falls into the clinical diagnosis. But the good news about insomnia is it can effectively be cured or managed where some of the other sleep disorders cannot. And this is an example of a insomnia night on the left and a good night of sleep on the right. This is my sleep tracker. And as you can see, it's pretty bad. All those red marks at the top are all the time that I spent awake in the night, 2.5 hours that night. And let me tell you, that was a brutal morning to wake up from. So my first step to conquering chronic tiredness is to give up this mantle. Let's start to acknowledge that being chronically tired is not normal, and we do not have to live that way. Let's do like Amy Poehler says, be tired about talking about being tired all the time, because you don't have to live with it. So how do we go about prioritizing our sleep? Well, the first step is to understand how much sleep do you need? So we know with children that our sleep needs change. This is something we know intuitively. Babies are asleep all the time. Toddlers have naps. Elementary age kids are going to bed at 7, 8 o'clock at night. Now, teenagers are chronically tired because well, for two reasons. They start to engage in the bad behaviors that contribute to bad sleep, right? They stay up too late. They start to experiment with, drinking coffee and drugs and alcohol, and they just engage in really bad behaviors. The other thing is, current research is coming out showing that their circadian rhythm is actually shifting. So their melatonin production starts to begin later. They want to go to bed later, which means they want to wake up later. So when school starts at 8 o'clock, they're not really ready to get up yet because of that shift in their circadian rhythm. So there's a couple of things happening with teenagers. When we get into middle age, our 40s and 50s, we're down to about 7 hours of sleep, and seniors down to about 6.5. Now, the most important change in our sleep as we age is our deep sleep declines, which means we tend to get lighter, more easily awoken nights of sleep, which means we don't feel as good a quality of rest as we age. The other thing to note about our sleep needs is that it's genetic. There's actually a gene that tells you how much sleep you need. And some need less, like the jellyfish or Sir Richard Branson, who says he needs 5 to 6 hours of sleep. And some need more, like the sloth, or like LeBron James, who gets 8 to 9 hours of sleep per night, plus he naps during the day. So he gets about 12 hours of sleep in a day. Both extremely successful. So there's no reason to think Sir Richard Branson way is the only way. What it is what do you need? And here's how you know. The number of hours that you sleep is not important. Actually, trying to achieve a certain number of hours of sleep causes a lot of stress and anxiety, which for a lot of my insomnia clients means they can't sleep because they're stressed and anxious about how much sleep they're going to get. So we don't want to get hung up on this number. If you don't have trouble sleeping, ask yourself these 3 questions. Do you need an alarm clock to wake up? Do you nod off during boring, sedentary tasks, monotonous tasks, driving, listening to a lecture? Do you sleep in on weekends regularly? If you can answer no to these questions, then you're likely getting enough sleep. Now, if you answer yes to these questions, then you might have either maybe a sleeping problem of some sort, or you're not giving yourself enough time to sleep. So if you don't think you have a sleep disorder, but you don't think you might be giving yourself enough time to sleep, try going to bed a half hour earlier for a week at a time until you can say yes or no to these questions. When you can say no to these questions, then you know you're getting enough sleep. When you want to sleep in, you wake up naturally. Yeah, okay. I will address that question later. So the second step is stop watching the clock and pay attention to how you feel during the day. That question is about, it comes down to, there's a sleep anxiety that comes with watching the alarm clock. It's very common. Okay, so let's stop watching the clock. Let's just worry about feeling good about our sleep. So now I'm going to give you 3 tips on how to get the best sleep and how to get a good night's sleep. The first one is to engage in daily stress reduction strategies. Justine mentioned it earlier about increased stress and anxiety and cortisol and how it affects you. It absolutely affects your sleep. 75% or 50% of people with insomnia have anxiety, depression, or psychological stress. 75% of people with depression and 90% of people with PTSD also have insomnia. Anxiety, mental health is interrelated with sleep. And having some sort of strategy to help you reduce your stress and anxiety will help you sleep. So the other thing to note about this is if you are going through something really stressful, to just acknowledge you're not going to sleep well and to be okay with that. Because if you get too anxious about not sleeping because you're stressed, it adds more stress. And stress about sleep is one of the biggest reasons my clients can't sleep at night. So we want to reduce the stress around our sleep as much as possible. So here are some standard methods of reducing stress. Obviously, meditation, exercise, yoga, journaling. Lesser known methods, sunshine. Sunshine is so important for regulating your sleep-wake cycle. Not only does it boost your mood, but it regulates your melatonin production and a lot of other functions that are part of your circadian rhythm. Do something exciting with your time, spend time with family and friends, do something new, try new things. EFT tapping, where you tap on acupressure points. That's what I use to start my path to good sleep, was reducing my stress and anxiety. Hypnosis, breath work, those are all good ways to reduce stress. Exercise improves sleep for a number of reasons. One, your brain compensates for physical stress. So like the physical stress you put on your body with exercise by increasing deep sleep. So you sleep more deeply and soundly after exercise. It helps ward off daytime fatigue. So when we have a bad night's sleep and we're anxious and irritated the next day, exercise helps give us feel-good mood boosters. So it takes away that stress and irritability during the day. So that helps you as well. But the other one is boredom is a sleep killer. So make sure you exercise your brain too. You want to be doing things that actively engage your brain as well. Just not right before bed, because right before bed, you want to be relaxing to go to sleep. And this research study from Stanford found that just having moderate activity, 30 minutes every other day, reduce time to go to sleep by half and increase total length of sleep time by an hour. So even moderate activity like cleaning the house, going for walking the dog, that kind of stuff can help your sleep. And then you hear a lot about having a proper bedtime routine, which I agree is really important. Getting ready for bed is really important, but I don't think we talk enough about the morning. And one of the reasons why I think the morning routine is so important is because if we sleep in on the weekends, it really disrupts our circadian rhythm. And our circadian rhythm is the internal clock that runs our entire bodily functions. But it's not just one clock. Every cell and organ in your body has its own circadian rhythm clock that keeps the main clock in the brain on time. So when you change your schedule, like sleeping in on the weekends, you disrupt that entire rhythm and clock. And so what you want to do is make sure that you're getting up at the same time. And sometimes that's hard on the weekend. So what I do with my clients is we come up with something you do in the morning that you absolutely love and can't wait to get out of bed to do. So have you tried to get up earlier to exercise and then fall off the wagon within a week or 2 weeks before? Have you ever tried that and had that happen to you? Of course, yeah. No, hey, good for you. So what happens is if you don't love exercise and you're going to try and get up earlier, if you're tired, you're going to come up with every excuse in the book not to get up because you're tired. That's why you can't keep that habit. So that's why your morning routine, oh, I'm going to skip this slide since I'm past that. Your morning routine has to be something that you absolutely love, because otherwise you will not get out of bed to do it. So for me, my morning routine is I read my business or personal development books in the morning, and that's the only time I read them. And if I happen to wake up earlier than I want to, I think, yahoo, I get to read. Yeah, I got more time to read. I don't have to rush through my morning routine. So it's super exciting for me. So that's why it's really important to get up in the morning so you can keep your circadian rhythm on track, which then will help you with your sleep at night. So step 3, create those good habits to get the sleep you need, and ask for help if you don't feel rested during the day. If you think that you might have a problem, please, please, please ask for help. And especially if you think you might have sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is so hard on the heart. I really can't encourage you enough to go and get that tested. So here are my takeaways. Let's be tired of being tired. Let's just stop that whole, this is normal. It's not normal. When you're a good sleeper, you're not tired regularly, right? There's 80 different types of sleep disorders out there. You never know what could be happening to you. Don't focus on the amount of sleep. Remember to ask yourself these questions to find out, to determine whether or not you're sleeping well enough, and then create those good habits to get quality sleep. And I'm going to pop this slide up for you guys. You can take a screenshot of this so you know how to get a hold of me if you want. And actually, I'm going to pop a link in the chat here, which can take you to some free resources and other things too. So thank you very much. I look forward to answering your questions later.